All right, hey y'all, today in our video we are actually going to be picking up in the middle of page 6. You might remember in our last video that we had talked about how to determine independent and dependent variables, and that actually started on page 4 and you guys filled that out. Then on the back you filled this out for page 5, and then we started at the top of page 6. We finished up the matching here in our last video, and so here we are today. Today we're actually going to focus on identifying domain and range. I did mention this in the last video. I'll show you guys here that we did talk about the inputs and the outputs being domain and range. So that should be on your radar a little bit. And today we're just going to focus on formalizing, I should say. We're going to formalize the definitions of domain and range and practice identifying them in a variety of settings. So the first thing I'm going to have you guys do is to notice that we've got a blank table of values. It is really easy to identify domain and range if you have a table. It's a little tougher if you have just the graph over here. So first, let's just list out the ordered pairs so we can see the domain and range. This first ordered pair is 0, 5. My second ordered pair is over 1, up 1, 2, 3. And my next ordered pair is over 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down 2. So over 4, down 2. Now, when you guys see the table of values, it's very easy here to see that the domain is going to be the 0, the 1, and the 4. So you guys can go ahead and jot that down with me. And that the range is going to be the 5, the 3, and the negative 2. Now, when we are listing domain and range, we actually order from least to greatest. So when I give the list here from least to greatest, I'm actually going to start with the negative 2. Then I'm going to go with the 3, then the 5. And I can explain why we do least to greatest here in a second, but go ahead and just get this all filled out in your notes. Okay, cool. So we've got least to greatest. Now, I think a lot of you have seen the movie WALL-E, and this is actually Eve. You might remember that from the movie. And what Eve, or her name's Eve, but what she does is she's actually scanning for plant life. And this little thing kind of comes out and she kind of scans back and forth, left and right, to see if she finds any plants. And if she does find like a little plant, what ends up happening, and some of you, again, if you've seen the movie, you know what happens is basically she turns into a pod. She like collects the green plant and the green plant lives in her, and then she goes back up into a spaceship, and that's us trying to see if there's still plant life on Earth. So if you've never seen the movie, oh my gosh, WALL-E is so good. But I wanted to actually call your attention to this little scanner thing, this blue thing that comes out of Eve, and she scans everywhere for plant life. So back on page 6 here, I'm going to show you guys. I want you to imagine this thing is like a little scanner. All right, so let's see what happens here. For the domain is all of the inputs that are on an x-axis. And I want to remind you guys that this is the x-axis right here. So if I'm looking for anything on the x-axis, I'm basically scanning here. See how I'm going on the x-axis? So when I'm on the x-axis, you see right here, boom, there's a point at 0. Boom, at 1. Boom, at 4. And I just said the 0, the 1, and the 4. Again, as I scan, there it is at 0. This is the 0. Then I would move over 1. There is a point. And here's another point at over 4. So when we are looking at the x-axis here, that allows us to scan for the domain. Now let's scan for the range on the y-axis, okay? So on the y-axis, if I'm now scanning up and down along this y-axis, I scan and I see a point right here at negative 2. Then I see a point here at 3, and then another one at 5. So again, from bottom to top, beep, 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 ding, 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 ding. There's one at negative 2. Then I move up here. This is at 3. And then this one is at 5. So that's what we mean when we see the negative 2, the 3, the 5. And I'm going to have you guys kind of visualize the scanner again as you're scanning for the domain versus scanning for the range, kind of like Eva does in the movie WALL-E. All right, so that takes care of page 6. So now let's flip over and let's look at page 7. And I'm actually going to, let me just get some more scanner lines in here. And right now they're black. Let me actually make them blue. All right, cool. So we have our blue scanner lines in here. So for the domain, again, on the x-axis, see how like literally I'm dragging along the x-axis? So I'm going to see a point here, 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 and here. And then for the range, I'm going to see a point here, 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 and here. All right. Now to make sure we're okay with that, let's just list the ordered pairs. I've got this first one is back 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 4. So back 4, up 4. The next one, I'm back 2, up 3. The next one is 0, 2. Then we've got over 2, up 1. And then we're going to go over 4, and that's it. That one's right there on the axis. Perfect. So again, when you see a table of values, y'all, being able to list out the domain and range is super easy. Now, because I'm on the computer, I can actually type in this little bracket brace thingy, and I can go from least to greatest, the -4, the -2, the 0, the 2, and the 4, and I can close it. And that's me just listing the domain. Now, because you guys don't have the computer to type that in, I really think like when you guys are just trying to draw that little squiggly thing, it's a little tough. A lot of times students will just draw like a squiggly for their braces right now at this age while they're trying to get good at it. Some of you might know from like March Madness, like when you see people playing in a tournament, this is called like a bracket type situation, okay? And so when you guys see the hard kind of rectangular edge, that's called a bracket. And then when you see this kind of little curvy thing, that's called a brace. So you have brackets and braces, which is some of you with your dental work with your teeth. You've also heard of brackets and braces in your mouth, which is kind of funny. But yeah, when we're listing the domain and range, we do put them in braces. So here, let's look at the range together. It's going to be from least to greatest, this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So you always want to identify domain and range and list them from least to greatest. And I'm going to prove, again, the points that you see here from domain to range. Let's look again at the domain. When I scan, I see it on this number line, this is at -4. There's a point, so there's the -4. On the number line, this is a -2, so boom, there's a point. Then there was another point at 0. This is at 2, and then this is at 4, so that takes care of the domain. And then for the range, I'm going to scan beep, 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 ding, 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 ding. So right there at on the axis at 0. Then it's going to move up. Whoops, sorry. I moved my keyboard. This is going to move up a little bit more to 1, then to 2, then to 3, then to 4, which is what you guys are seeing here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, cool. So notice that I'm kind of dropping that table of values. I want us to just practice here using the scanner. And you guys, again, because you're not on your computer, you just kind of have to visualize it. But since I'm motioning it here for you, it makes it really easy to help visualize. So for the domain, I'm going to be looking here this way. And I'm going to start to scan from left to right. And right there, I hit a point. So I have hit a point at the -1. Go ahead and draw your brace. And we're at a -1. All right, then I'm going to hit again right here. That would be over 1, down 2, so over 1. Then it would hit again at a 2, and then finally at a 3. So at a 2, and then a 3. All right, cool. So we've taken care of the domain. We have scanned on the x-axis. Now let's scan along the y-axis. Whoops. So right here, I have a point all the way down here at -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I see one down at -8. All right. Then I'm going to move my scanner up. Beep, 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 beep. Right here. So that is over 1, down 2. So I'm at down 2 on the y-axis. Then this one is going to be at up 1. And then this one is at 1, 2, 3, 4, so at 4. And that is how you do this. Remember, you have a backup plan. If it makes you more comfortable to just kind of sketch in an XY table for yourself and literally just list in the ordered pairs, kind of like we did above, that's totally fine, but it is not required. And you can see here using the scanning method, you could tell me the domain and range pretty quickly and efficiently. All right, and now here, ordered pairs can come in a table of values, but they also might just be listed as a set. So if you guys see a list of ordered pairs like this, again, for the domain, it's just a list of inputs. And right here, just make sure you put them from least to greatest. So we got a -1, a 5, and a 7, which is the same list that you would have seen right here. That's your list of inputs. That's the domain. And then for the range here, from least to greatest, it's a 2, 3, and a 6. And there's the 2, the 3, and the 6. So it doesn't matter what format I give you the points in. It could be the table or in a list. You should still be able to identify the domain and range. And the table of values, sometimes, y'all, it's this horizontal table. And so your domain is the list of inputs right there. So we've got a 1, 3, 5, 7. Don't forget about your braces. And again, you can see my little squigglies kind of suck now too because I'm writing on the computer. And the next set right here is going to be, it's the 3, the 6, the 8, and the 10. And that would be the outputs. That would be the range. The 3, the 6, the 8, and the 10. Now, real quick, I just want to kind of link back to something that we did a little bit with independent and dependent variables here. So what is the relationship? If we look very carefully here, we can see that we add 3, add 3, add 3. And just for the sake of this being like a pattern, I'm just going to make that a 4, which means technically I'm going to make this a 4. Oh, wait, sorry, I changed the wrong one. If I make that a 4, I'm going to make this a 4. And now we can see that if I made that little change, now we can see that we just add 3 every time. So I take the input, x, and then I add 3. And the output that I get every time, it simply depended on what number I plugged in here. So if I take a 5 as an input and plug it in right here, now the 5 plus 3 gives me the output of 8, which is listed right here. So your independent variable, this is the thing that can change. And then the answer over here is what depended on it, which is why we always call x the independent variable and y the dependent variable. Always, always, always. And those lists of numbers that you would plug in, that's the domain. And the list of the answers that you get every time, that would be the range. All right, that takes care of page 7. And you guys are actually going to see there's a typo on the top of your page 8. Go ahead and flip over. The table from the last page accidentally spilled over right here. I do not want this here. I do not want this here. So I'm going to cover it up. I do not want that there. And I now have a, so you can scratch it out. Just scratch it out, scratch it out, scratch it out. We don't need that thing. Again, that was left over from the previous page. That's my bad. I should have caught that. I'm really sorry about that. But I want to talk about what happens real quick if you see the same number listed more than once. Okay. So in this situation, my ordered pairs, I've got a 0, 5. I have a 1, 3. And then I have a 1, -2. A 1, -2. So if you happen to see a number listed more than once like that, when you're giving me the domain, you only have to write it one time. So you can tell me that the domain here is a 0 and a 1, while the range, you could tell me, is the -2, the 3, and then the 5. So if you see the same number listed more than once, you only actually have to write it once. And I might write that down if I were you. I only have to write it one time. And again, if I get my little scanner line right here, the thing that repeated, I'll just show you when I go this way, there it is at the 0, and here is my line scanning, and it hits, see how it hits more than once? So it's okay, you can just tell me that it'll hit at a 1. Okay, I don't have to write it more than once there, I just write it the one time. And the same does hold true, y'all. Like if you see the same thing, let me just sketch like another graph real quick for you guys. Let's say this happens, boom, boom, and then I'll put another one like over here. So this time when we scan, I'll just put in some points. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, this time when we scan, boop, you can see I'm going to scan and it's at a -1. And then this is at a 1, 2, 3, 4. So the domain this time we just said was the negative, sorry, it's -2. So -2, 2, and 4. And so it holds true if the other one is what repeats, you still only have to write it more than once, or you don't have to write it more than once, I mean, sorry about that. So like here in my range, that is a 1, and then this would be like at a 2, and then those are at 3s. So the range, you would just literally tell me if that's a 1, 2, 3, the range is just the 1 and the 3. You do not have to list it more than one time if it only appears, if it appears more than once, you only have to list it one time. All right, and that concludes the video. You can see that we'll be picking up on page 8 in our next video. All right, thank you.